6 p.m. If you'd please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silent prayer and reflection. Next, we have a roll call for attendance.
Councilmember Kern. Here. Councilmember Mosley.
Here.
Councilmember Motney.
Here.
Councilmember Dannenberger.
Here.
Councilmember Straza.
Here.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Scott. Here. Mayor Brady.
Here. Thank you. Are there any public comments this evening, Madam Clerk?
We did receive one emailed public comment that was from Gage Juarez. It was provided to council before the meeting today, but we have no one registered to speak in person or remotely.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to the consent agenda. The only item on the consent agenda is to approve last committee of the whole's minutes, so I would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Moved by member
I will second.
Hendricks, seconded by member Scott.
And I'll just,
Voice vote.
just call it quick. Councilmember Kearns.
Yes.
Councilmember Mosley.
Yes.
Councilmember Motney.
Yes.
Councilmember Dannenberger.
Yes.
Councilmember Straza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Scott.
Yes.
The item passes, no nays to announce.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to the regular agenda item for this evening's committee of the whole, which is 7A, which is a presentation on the City of Bloomington's supplemental water source and review draft report as requested by the Water Department and by Council and Administration. And Mr. Juergens will explain further.
Thank you, Mayor. We're excited to have this discussion tonight. Believe it or not, long before the drought of last year, we had been studying what our future water source is going to look like for some time. We are a growing community, and this is something that has something we have been working on and studying. And I think as will be discussed tonight, as a water utility, we always have to be thinking about where that next source of water is going to come from. And you're going to hear a little bit tonight about what our staff has been doing in that regard. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Water, Brett Lucian, and Assistant Director Scott Joyce, and then our experts from Farnsworth as well to help make this presentation and answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Like to introduce our team. So obviously our new promoted Water Assistant Director, Scott Joyce. Then we have Kevin Hanel and also Bob Colhays from Farnsworth that's going to be joining us this evening. So tonight we do want to cover a few slides on what we've been doing with the current water state and also what we're looking at for the future. So our current water sources are Lake Bloomington, Evergreen Lake, and also the Mackinac pumping pool intake. As you'll hear later on tonight, we're actually utilizing the Mackinac in a better capacity and stuff like that, and we'll cover that later on in another slide. So our water treatment facility, so we have a 10 million gallon day average. Our peak is about 17 million gallons. Our water treatment plant is rated at 24.5 million gallons. So we're way below that average day of where our water treatment plant could actually produce water. Our water distribution system, we have about 445 miles of water main, and those sizes range anywhere between 4-inch and 42. We serve about 29,000 accounts, which are about 32,500 meters. I'm going to turn it over to Bob for the next slide.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to share with you our findings. One of the key systems that we want to talk about is the drought safe yield of the lakes, the two reservoirs. And that's really why we're here even talking about this. Because if right now you have unlimited water, the only limitation is how many gallons per minute can you produce at the water treatment plant, which is much greater than your average day. So this is a key point that we want to highlight, And you will see here that it's very complex how to determine the safe yield, and this is going to be something we're going to talk about of next steps. But it's been studied many times by the Water Survey, different consultants. And for the sake of this conversation, using a 2009 report from the Illinois State Water Survey, the safe yield would be 12.7 million gallons a day. There's other averages that go up to 14. But what this tells you is that during a drought, a certain type of drought, that is what the yield is from those lakes. So that is a key point. It's not today because the water is going over the dam. It's when the lakes are going down and their number of days of supply go down. And so really it's a very statistical, scientific process to determine that. And that is one of the recommendations that Scott will be talking about of what to do next. And so this is really, you hear about this, but it's really the foundation of what we're trying to do to build more resilience so that we can boost that up. So there's a bigger gap between your average day and what a drought condition yield is.
Go to the next slide, please. So then let's talk about what we're currently doing. And I'm going to run through this one pretty quickly, but we've enhanced the Mackinac River monitoring. So we've got a USGS stream gauge that just went online. And we're working on developing the rating curve so that we can better understand how much water is going through the Mackinac. Previously, our permit told us that, you know, if the water was 100 CFS, we were allowed to pump it. And we have found that based on the physical dimension that was determining that flow, that there was actually more water flowing through than we previously thought. So we're really stepping up our monitoring there to really see what's going through the river and if we can capture more of that water. The meter system improvements. So I guess maybe combined with the other one, we'll talk about non-revenue water really quickly. We're really working on replacing meters, making sure more of the water that's going through the system is metered so that we're not giving away water. We're tracking the consumption and revenue recovery through enhanced metering technologies. So just different ways that, you know, instead of compound meters at some facilities, we've got different meters that work on and measuring the highs and the lows and everywhere in between and not missing any of the water that goes through there. Leak detection is ongoing. We found leaks through a consultant that we didn't know were there previously. So, you know, that was an excellent find. And we're just continuing to work on monitoring and really analyzing the data to figure out where the weak spots in the system are so that we can ideally fix the system before there are breaks. So we'll go to the next slide. And I think that this is the Mackinac data collection. Like I said, we had just worked with USGS to have a stream gauge put in on, and it went live on 5/5. So they're building their rating curve, which is going to tie flow data to elevation. So if you were to go on the internet and look up the Mackinac River near Hudson, it will give you that graph that's on the screen there. And right now it will give you levels. That's a really arbitrary number. It doesn't really mean that there's 13 feet of water in the river right now, but it's a number that USGS is working with as they develop their rating curve. So the one data point that they had when I built this PowerPoint slide was at 13.65, it was 175 cubic feet a second of water, which is 113 million gallons a day. So at that point, we thought that it should have only been flowing 100 cubic feet per second, which is where our permit would cut off our ability to use that water. So at that point, there was nearly 50 million gallons a day flowing past our pumping pool that we didn't know was there previously. So that's really why we want to step up that data collection there. And I pulled that, we didn't get a chance to get out, but we've got a piece of equipment that they had previously used for high flow events to check our tributaries and measure that flow. So USGS is going to be out there, but we're going to also be out there gathering that data and kind of mapping that riverbed just to make sure that we're not surprised by the water that's going by there in the future. Next slide, please. This is, I think, really interesting in that The year, well, 6/10/24 through 6/10/25, and everyone can see the numbers, so I guess I don't need to say them out loud, but we produced, that quantity of water, and we metered, like that quantity of water, and the metered share was 68%. So this last year, we have improved that by 6.53 percentage points. So that's a combination of both, more is going through the meters with better metering, but also cutting down what's not going through the meters, which is just, going into the ground through leaks or, other versions of non-revenue water. So we've really cut that non-revenue water in the last year by, 6.5%. So, and I hope that trend keeps up. And if we keep, I can't say that we'll always go down 6.5% a year, but we'll definitely keep trying. So we sold more water in this last year and metered more of that. So that's definitely an improvement, and we'll keep working on, less leaks and better meter reads and keep pushing that number down.
Next slide, please. As we talk about T&D system projects, we have the US 51 water main replacement project that's going on. It's replacing about 13,000 feet of water main. Those ages of that main is from 1975 to 1954. So it's some of our older pipe. As we were working on this project, we actually found a couple pieces of that pipe actually leaking. So when we talk about unaccounted water, that's water that's not being metered and stuff. So as we continue improving the system by water main projects, the next one's going to be the census tract. We're going to improve that water loss and account for it. Next project we'll talk about is the census tract 59. We're going to be replacing over 606 lead service lines. With those lead service lines are galvanized. So usually it's lead from the water main to the curb stop, then galvanized from the curb stop to the house. A lot of times we found over the time that those galvanized lines are leaking, and that's unaccounted water because the meters inside the house are the business. So with us replacing those lead service lines, as we go through the next 10 years of replacing all the lead, we'll be getting rid of a lot of that aging infrastructure that could possibly be leaking. System-wide improvements. So this is multiple phases. We'll have one of the phases that's going to be coming on council here in July. That's a multi-project, multi-phase, but that's actually taking care of a lot of our older pump stations and a lot of our older transmission mains that could possibly be leaking as well. Then, like Scott mentioned earlier, leak detection. We're always ongoing with leak detection, trying to find leaks that aren't surfacing that we just don't know. And so we're always trying to improve the system by that. Next slide.
So for the recent study, that we were commissioned to do, it was really a compilation of many studies over the years. One thing that I want to make sure that I highlight is that the city, from the beginning of the water supply, has always been improving their water supply, starting in 1930 with Lake Bloomington. And then there's a series of items that were done that were in the technical summary that Kevin and I put together for you. And so it's always been getting better. And so looking at this, there's not a new study that was done, but basically bringing the key points together. And in some ways, it was actually a fairly complicated effort, even though these were written, because how do we communicate to you all this different information that is out there and put it in a succinct format? And we did that in two ways. In the technical summary that you have is a map, and then the other is a matrix that basically summarizes all the different opportunities for water. Now, they're not all equal, and some of them have different purposes of what they would serve. So what we did was compile that and to help guide to what are next steps to make sure that we're looking at that. And next steps change based on your water use regulations or new regulations than when we first started looking at this. And so you have to look at this, the cost of everything has gone up. And so it's really puts it together so that hopefully you can focus, because the main report is, a couple hundred pages, but it has appendices from the past. And we reviewed everything we could. I was reviewing reports from 1929 talking about planning for water. So it's not a new topic, but it's how do we set it up for the future? And all the topics, whatever you do, will take, there's not a one effort that will take care of it. It is a series of multi-generational effort to set today's, you know, to set today for the future. And so that's what we did to put together for you. Next slide.
Next slide. So as part of that effort, obviously one of the first things that we wanted to include in there was really an ongoing effort to understand your current assets, which are your two lake reservoirs. One of the things that the city had done in 2024 was an updated bathymetric survey. A bathymetric survey is really just a profile of the bottom of the lakes. So you can see where that lake bottom is now compared to previously, how much sedimentation has silted in, which reduces the storage capacity for the water. So an updated survey was done in 2024. So really that helped evaluate your timing of future maintenance, future dredging of those lakes. And just as an ongoing maintenance item that will need to be done at some point in the future. So it really just helps provide some of that timing as to say when is the benefit worth doing. And as the study suggested, Lake Evergreen is newer and hasn't silted in as much. It only was suggesting that you would be able to gain 101 million gallons of additional storage capacity, which in terms of that safe yield that we've talked about earlier, is only about 6 to 10 days of supply during those drought conditions. Lake Bloomington, on the other hand, being the older of the two reservoirs, has gotten to that point that sometime in the future, it would be worth doing some dredging. They're suggesting that you could get upwards of 600 million gallons of additional storage capacity, which is 40 to 60 days, again, based on that safe yield during drought conditions. So the cost of that dredging would range, according to that study, anywhere between 39 to 51 million. So next slide.
So the dredging is a significant step forward, but you're really, what you would be doing is setting up for the future of getting ready to do that. It's not something to do right now, but there's steps you can do to be prepared for the future for the next generations. And as a reference point, you may have heard about Decatur. They did a tremendous amount of dredging as one of their supply answers to bolster their supply. And so that's another point we wanted to make, that water supply needs for every community, no matter the size, are always a challenge. And there's many communities that are fine because they're not growing and their supply can do that. But because you have a dynamic community and you're growing, you've expanded over the years. So dredging would be one. And the Mahomet Aquifer, if you're going to go to groundwater, this is the main source of water that you go for. And after the drought, there was a collaboration between the city, the town, and McLean County that commissioned a series of studies. And one of them was to do a detailed aquifer study of the Mahomet. Now, the Mahomet is a very famous aquifer, very important aquifer. Champaign relies on it, and communities all along the way rely on the Mahomet. At that time, before the study, you had mapping that you thought you could go anywhere and find the sand and gravel that you needed to extract water. And Normal actually has 4 wells, but farther to the east of the main body of the Mahomet for the supply, part of their water supply. What the study did was define the geology and the shape, the 3D shape and form of this aquifer. And then on top of that, it followed with a modeling of, if you took out 15 million gallons a day, what would that do to the water levels? And so from that very extensive detailed study of 2 reports, that it was determined that it could supply up to 37 million gallons a day at full build out. Now, that's not something you would do in one fell swoop, but at that time, it would be something you could do in increments. So you could do, let's say, in 5 million increments until you needed more water. So it's more of an incremental change, but you still have to have the pipeline, which is often more expensive than actually developing the well field. So this is, if the groundwater, there's other subsets of groundwater that could be considered. But as far as the primary source for groundwater, this was determined to be a sustainable yield for the needs of the city from those studies for the water survey and the geological survey. Next slide, please.
So then to take that next big incremental step, if you're looking for surface water, the option that was included was looking at the Illinois River. Now, of the options that were looked at and compiled in this study, this is the one that's been studied and researched the least to date. It has been looked at various points throughout time. But this one would need additional, more comprehensive, detailed research done to really nail down and further define the scope and the costs of this option. Some of the things that would need to be really kind of zeroed in on would be, where is that intake at the river going to be located? What's the routing of that transmission main back from the river back to either a new plant or the existing plant at Bloomington, or is it going to just be mixed in? Is that water going to be mixed into the two reservoirs in the lakes that we already have? There would be a lot of agencies that would be included in that additional research, looking at things from the perspective of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and Illinois Department of Natural Resources. U.S. Fish and Wildlife, I think, has been mentioned previously on the Mackinac River. That would also apply as well. In going back, like Bob mentioned, Farnsworth was looking back through some of the previous studies that had been done, and Farnsworth had looked at this Illinois River option back after the 1989 drought conditions. The other part that this is a little different, like Bob mentioned, with the groundwater and going to the Mahomet, where you can incrementally add. This one probably really, for the length and the scope of this, would really lend itself more to and we put it in there as more of a primary constant use source. That this would be something that, if you're going to expend that kind of capital and go to the Illinois River, it's probably going to need to become your primary source to make it worth it. So the cost estimate in there was around 175 million, but that needs further study and would need to be refined further. And I hate to say, would probably likely go up. Next slide, please. So this slide tries to kind of look at those three main options that were discussed previously and are in the technical summary. The dredging of the lakes, or actually just the dredging of Lake Bloomington for now, the Mahomet Aquifer, and the Illinois River. These planning numbers are, again, very high level, rough order of magnitude type costs, and subject to a lot of variation, and would need to be studied further. And really depends some based on the philosophy of how you're going to use it, like we just talked about, whether it's intermittent supplemental usage or whether it's your primary source, because those denominator numbers, as far as the million gallons per day, will make a difference as far as how you're going to use it. So the dredging is really included in there because that's something that's just the way we were looking at it was just maintenance, future maintenance that you're going to need to do at some point, regardless of whether that's your source capacity or your source water. So next slide, please.
So as we talk about recommendations and next steps, so we feel that our next step is to look at our safe yield. So here soon, we'll be bringing to the council a proposal to take a look at our safe yield and update it. Since it's been since 2009, when the last safe yield was looked at, we think it's time to go ahead and take a look at that and see if we're in the positive or in the negative. So we'll be bringing to the council here in the next few months a proposal to actually look at the safe yield. That would include the Evergreen Lake, the increased volume that we have there, the Mackinac pumping pool for the increased uses, and also the settlement reduction. As we prepare, as we talked about dredging Lake Bloomington, at some point, even if we don't use that as our main water source, we're going to want to dredge Lake Bloomington at some point, just for a maintenance aspect, also for water quality. So, and as we move forward, obviously, we need to keep looking at our feasibility and research of both groundwater from the Mahomet Aquifer, the surface water of Illinois River, any other minor sources that could be potential to be able to provide us additional water. So next slide. And with that, we'd like to thank the council and the mayor and the city manager for letting us to present this. So we're going to open up to any questions.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, all of you. And for all of us here, I know that we have a priority of water and researching next steps. So thank you for the information. And now we will turn it over for questions, comments, and members who wish to ask questions. Member Money?
Sure. Thank you very much for helping educate us on this topic. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about slippage or leakage. What is the common term for that in your line of work?
So it could be water main breaks. It could just be any water loss.
Oh, I was just meaning, what do you call that in your language? Do you call it leakage?
Water loss.
Water loss?
Yeah.
So you shared that you guys have been able to improve it from a little over 30% to about 25% in just the last year or two. Is that correct?
Yes, we believe
Okay.
we have. Yes.
And best in class on that, I think, is around 10%. I'm just wondering, what are you doing to specifically attack that? Since that is an opportunity perhaps that may or may not require a new water source for us.
Yeah. So obviously last council, the council approved $2 million of water meters. So as we continue replacing water meters, we're getting better accuracy. We're getting the what we call a mock meter. So it doesn't have any moving parts in it. So it's actually reading every drop that goes through that meter. So we're actually getting better readings from our for the water being used. Also with the approvals of all the water main projects that we're continue doing is actually taking care of the aging pipe that's possibly leaking and so forth.
Mm-hmm. And so as you guys have put together KPIs for your department, is leakage a KPI?
Obviously, meter change outs is obviously one of our KPIs. Doing leak detection, trying to get capital projects. Yes.
So those in my line of work are activities.
Yes.
But the actual outcome that you're talking about improving, the potential key performance indicator would be your actual result for that KPI as your percentage of leakage. Does that make sense? And I guess I'm directing that toward you and also toward the city manager as we talk about building out KPIs. I think that would be an outstanding KPI.
Yeah. Obviously, that's a high metric that we always want to try to improve that water loss and stuff like that. And we take that very serious. That's why we are very proactive of replacing water mains, doing services, and changing out our meters. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that kind of answered your question.
So next, when did Rivian come on Bloomington Water?
So Mitsubishi, it was actually the first that was in that factory and stuff. Rivian, obviously it's been sold over time and stuff. So basically it's just changed hands. But Rivian, I don't want to say off the top of my head, but it's been a few years.
So I noticed on slide 3 that that's when we had a significant uptick. So again, I just think in terms of understanding, you know, all the facts associated with the conditions that we found ourselves in a couple of years ago. I mean, I've seen some data out of the department that shows that they are by a wide margin our largest consumer of Bloomington water. Mm-hmm. So I would kind of like to understand the correlation of what I'm seeing on slide 20 is impacted by bringing them onto the Bloomington water as they ramped up production.
Okay. Yeah, we could definitely take a look at that. No matter which manufacturing's been at the Rivian plant, they've been on City of Bloomington water. So we could go back and look at those metrics back from whenever Diamond Star was constructed.
Yeah, and again, I'm trying to look to the future, not
Right.
to the past, but just an understanding. And it's my understanding also that Rivian's a particular approach to production is going to be quite different than what we would have experienced 20 years ago or so. So
That is
really
right.
just
Yeah.
interested in looking for the future on that. Okay, so other than the unaccounted revenue share, which I think would be a great performance indicator, because then all of those activities that you're talking about with your meter exchanges and things like that, will be the tactics that you employ in order to impact that metric. I'm also understanding in some areas of the country that fraud actually is legitimate reason for some leakage in water management in the municipal level. Is that something you've experienced here at all?
We have a pretty good understanding that, fire hydrants are on every block. We hope the constituents and the people that have access to those are not stealing water, hooking to them and stuff like that. We keep a very close eye on it. We have caught people hooking up to hydrants and stuff, and obviously we take their equipment. We talk to them. We give them the warning. We've even actually have turned them over to the police and stuff like that for them to investigate. So, but we don't see that on a regular basis. And I think that's what you're kind of talking about, fraud of people gaining access to our system and just taking water without us knowing.
Well, I mean, it can be a couple of different things, right? I mean, it can be that with intentional criminal intent.
Yes.
It could also be just connected to leakage or perhaps, I guess what I could call gaming this
Yeah.
process. So go ahead.
To add to that, our meters do offer tamper recording. So if we do go in and download the data from the meters, it would let us know if we suspect someone is tampering with the meter and either removing the meter from the meter head from the meter itself, and it just reads 0 for a week or two. If they're filling their pool, we can actually go look to make sure that people are not doing that.
So this is just an observation for me on that. The cost of water, people are writing about that, in social media comments. They're contacting council members about that. It is significant. And when and if first of all, we should have a fraud management program to formally be getting at that. And then I know, you entered that by saying, well, we try to talk to them or give them a warning. That is effectively theft from those who are paying their water bills. So it seems that we should have a program that's a little more formal, maybe than what you described. Again, my last question is defining safe yield.
So safe yield, I think Bob kind of talked a little bit about this. Bob, you want to kind of hit that one real quick?
Yeah, it's not an intuitive concept unless you're in the science community. And even with that, there's different ways to statistically look at it and what the different inputs are. For example, they're adding more flow monitoring into tributaries. With that data, the accuracy of your flow, your yield will be. So again, the safe yield is just saying, predicting for a duration of time that in a drought, and that's a key point, that during a drought period, that even with no water coming in, there's a certain volume, you have a volume of storage. So that you're drawing from your savings account, your lakes, your reservoirs. And then, so that's going to sustain you for a certain period of time. And so it's statistically looking at the data, looking over time, it will tell you that for now, from the one data point from the water survey, that even during a time of a drought, you can still maintain 12.7 million gallons a day supplying water for a certain duration.
Would a fair analogy then be like financial reserves? Essentially, you're talking about that's kind of our reserve storage of water that we could endure with. For a
Exactly.
period of
It is a savings, and that's a good thing to remember about the lakes. They're actually not lakes. They're reservoirs for water supply, and that's
Right.
something we lose track of. And it's great. There's a great resource, but it's also the water supply for our community. But that's exactly right. And so a little sidebar on that would be the dredging. Why would you do the dredging? Because it's going to add 40 to 60 days of average day use, meaning that you're replacing silt
Right.
with water, and so that extends your yield during a drought time. So it's really drawing on your savings account of water. Exactly right.
And when we talk about dredging, I mean, it seems like the projects that's being queued up is like the entirety of the entire volume of the Lake Bloomington Reservoir. Is that something that could be done effectively over time? You know, like a quarter?
Yeah,
Or
it would be
my understanding, we haven't done it for like a super, super long time, like maybe 100 years. Or
right.
whatever.
And even that's a very based on the measurements of the bottom and comparing it to previous measurements. It would actually be targeted in only certain areas of the lake. It's not the entire lake. It's basically areas that you could get the most out of that,
Mhm.
that is practical to pump out the silt and let it decant. So it is basically you could do it in stages.
Mhm.
Just a matter of, you could do, certain area for a smaller amount of money and
Yeah.
then come back and do more later.
Yeah.
And I'd have to look up what Decatur, how many years it took, but it's
Yeah.
measured in years just to
Mhm.
complete the project.
And even for recreational lakes, I think they do that over a long period of time. Like, you know, this decade, we're going to focus on this as opposed to, you know, looking at, a $60 million
Right.
dredging.
And a key point also to insert is that they could impact the water quality again that Brett was talking about. So not only quantity, but it could help the water quality also.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Member Ward?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for this very helpful information. I have a question about the most recent drought, particularly as it relates to the safe levels. How does the most recent drought compare to, I'm not even sure what to compare it to, but I'm trying to get my head around how bad was it compared to other droughts, and what did it do to us?
Right. I do not know the duration of that drought of a 1 in 5, 1 in 10, 1 in 25, but it it was very minor compared to the 88, 89 drought, or going back to the 80s, or the benchmark is 1939 and 1941. So an example of remembering what a good job the city's done over the century is that the water levels were going down, and Scott and Brett are really managing the supplies much more than they've ever managed before, as far as balancing. But a key metric, an easy metric, is that Evergreen Lake was raised 5 feet in 1995, added about 35% more water volume, which is huge. But Lake Evergreen I don't think it was down to the 1995 level yet. Scott would have to. So comparison, you use that reservoir, that bank account of water, and it was still not at the pre-1995 level. So you were really in good shape. So it was not to the level of those previous ones. It was going down, and then you were implementing, voluntary restrictions to just help and extend that out. So it was less than the 88, 89 drought.
Thank you for that perspective. You've mentioned Decatur. I guess again, I'm looking to try to have some big picture here about how we compare to other communities. Um, and again, I'm not sure what to compare us to, but how bad off are we compared to other communities?
As we mentioned, every community has the same challenge. And we could go on forever of all these different examples, but locally, Springfield has been trying to plan for a second lake for decades and decades and decades, and it probably will never happen because of getting the land and environmental concerns. Decatur, they have uh, they have the same analysis as Bloomington does. Springfield also, if you look at theirs, they're looking at what are the options to bring more water in, and it's almost a copycat. It's similar. So we are not in a bad situation here, but we need to every year be implementing something to move closer to one of the big solutions so that you're ready for a big solution. But reducing water loss, that's by doing that, you're deferring big capital expenditures. That's a source of water is minimizing that. And then there's other more minor areas of getting water that you could get 1 or 2 million gallons a day. So it's a series, there's not one, but it'd be moving towards the ultimate. So you're in a good shape, but you need to be doing something, the city constantly. You are setting up a pathway for the next generations is what's happening.
And I don't want to dominate with it. I want to leave options for my colleagues, but I did have one question on the Illinois River slide. I don't know if it's possible to show that one again, but I just was confused about something where it said something like 800 million gallons a day, but 25 million gallons a day. And I just wasn't sure what those numbers were referring to.
Yeah, I think those numbers I come from some of the ratings of the minimum flow and the typical flows in the Illinois River. So I think that was just what's available, kind of like what we were talking about with the Mackinac at that, like Scott talked about earlier, where at that 13 feet, 13 and change feet, we thought previously that was equivalent to 100 CFS, where it's actually 175, where I think that data was provided as far as what the river, the flow through the rivers are, through the river is, the minimum flow and the typical flow.
But our plant can only handle up
Correct.
to 24.5 million.
Yes, sir.
So even if there's unlimited water, there's only so much we can
Right.
put through our plant.
Is that what the distinction is then?
Yes.
So the
Yeah.
river could give us 800 million gallons a
That's the
day,
avail-
but we can't handle
Right.
but 25.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So I
Thank
think it
you.
was just trying to put
Yeah.
in terms of, okay, it's a very small percentage of the available flow through the river
Mhm.
that the city would be looking to capture.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all.
Great question.
Member Lee?
I have a question regarding water loss at the residence. So I know you said you're upgrading meters and those meters have the capability to monitor water usage. If there's a leak, can those meters monitor that? And do we have any way of alerting the resident that you have a water leak? Because honestly, it happened to me where a toilet flap failed and I didn't know about it. And I ended up with a very large water bill. And it would have been nice if, there was some kind of an alerting mechanism or some way to alert the resident. I think it would be helpful to, help with the water loss, but also to help prevent the surprise of a large water bill when you get the bill. So do we have that capability?
See, it's going to take a little bit more staff to be able to monitor those readings as they come in and so forth. And as we continue building out our network of meters and stuff, we are going to be able to gather those readings daily, rather than have to do a drive-by and so forth. So as we continue putting meters in, that's a new upgraded meter that will actually read back to a tower that we actually see what those daily readings actually are. And obviously the improving of the software and stuff gives us that ability to be able to do that in the future. So definitely something that we would definitely would like to do.
I think that would be a great example of maybe like using AI to, to monitor that and send out a little text alert or something. But yeah, I think that'd be something to look into. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Member Scott?
I can't yet. Oh, here we go. All right, thank you. So, a couple questions. So, when talking about reducing the leaks and the 350 million gallons, is that essentially 1 million gallons a day that we saved there? Ish.
Yeah, that would
Got
be
it.
accurate. Yeah.
Understood, understood. And then, so I understand, all right, so we've got an average of 10 MGD now, and I'm assuming what we're targeting for is like +2 standard deviations. Is there a number that we're targeting that we should be at instead of 12.7? I'm sorry.
12, this, are you talking about the safe?
So yeah, we've got 10 average, we got 12.7, and I'm assuming we need to be like at 10 plus X.
So maybe I'm not fully understanding your question. The 12.7, and maybe Bob hasn't.
Yeah, I think a way to look at it is that the 10 million gallons a day is just our average use. And the safe yield is not connected to that 10 million. It's just saying you have, if those numbers are accurate, you have a 2.7 surplus during a drought, only during drought. 'Cause
Understood.
now you have unlimited. Right now you're limited by 24.5 million if you want to produce that. So
Gotcha. So we're at the additional 2.7, but we need more.
it would be to have resilience to be able to accept growth
Yes.
and large users. You'd want to expand that. And that's why we want to look at the more, validate
Mhm.
what that number is.
Got it. Got it. So the
And
next,
so you have confidence before you spend large capital outlays that you're making a good decision based on good data.
understood. So the next series would be, what is the number that we need to target now? And what is the number we need to target in 10, 20, 30 years?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Gotcha. And then my final question is, we've talked about other communities, being in a similar boat and doing similar things. Is there any issues with that when we think about things like the Illinois River, with other communities potentially looking at the same thing?
And that's why next steps for the Illinois River would be to look at all the different details, talking to US EPA, IEPA, DNR, a couple different divisions there, IDOT for routing, and then ultimately, looking at what limits might be. DNR Water Resources, that division would say, you could take out that much water, but if we have an extreme drought and the Illinois River goes down to a certain point, they may have comment. And then we'd also have to look at the water quality of the Illinois River and look how they would want to treat that, where you would treat it. And so there's this list that just keeps growing of question marks that you want to start eliminating. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Thank you. Also, then I think we get council member to extend time. Someone wants to make that motion.
I'll motion that we extend the time by 15 minutes.
Third, second, seconded by member Dannenberger and I believe member Mosley.
Yeah, I just have one question. I think
Can we just say real quick, all in favor?
I think you kind of just answered it, and you were kind of alluding to it when Councilmember Ward was speaking. Is where you're saying is strategically, right? We need to increase our ability to have more water population, right, or capacity.
Yes, during a drought situation. So right now, the water supply is very strong, but it's when you have the drought, what that gap is of your average daily and what the lake can yield.
Okay.
And it can sustain drawing from that reservoir for quite a while. But if you have even a longer drought, to build resiliency, you'd like to have another supply that you could bring water in. And so you really take that limitation off during an extreme drought.
So what you're saying is then from the options that you guys presented today, right? Obviously, the only way for us to increase that cap overall is going to be to diversify in multiple manners rather than one size won't fit all.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's all I have. I appreciate you guys.
Member Straza.
Thank you. Yes, a couple questions. One of them going back to something earlier, we were talking about just the percentage of loss that we've currently been, it was reported a while back ago, we were at 30-some%. And just knowing that that's been there for a while and we've cut it down, 6% so far. Kind of maybe you answered this, maybe I missed it. What are some of the goals that we're aiming for FY27 and FY28 is saying that what are we trying to aim for? How much percentage are we going to try to aim for each fiscal year to reduce the amount of waste? I know we have the monitoring system we're improving, but what are we looking to? I would like to know what are we trying to aim for in the next year or two?
So obviously that's a very, very good question. We haven't set a goal but tonight will kind of let us set a goal and stuff like that. Obviously we want to try to be EPA looks at that 20%. They'd like to see us under that 20% water loss and stuff. So obviously, with the continuous of replacing water mains, installing more meters or accurate meters and stuff like that, that's going to help us get closer to those numbers and stuff. But we do not, I can't say that we've actually as a department has said, hey, let's try to get down to this in 27 and this in 28. But it's definitely a goal of ours.
Okay. It would be great if we could have something at least to aim for, because sometimes you're not aiming for anything, you're not going to hit anything. So I'd like to make sure we have something. It's not going to hold you to it, but at least let's see how close we can get with that. The other thing I had a question was as we're looking at growth, population growth, industry growth, we want to continue to grow as a community. And as we look at that 2009 study that we probably definitely need to redo because it's been a couple of years and based off a lot of factors, is that something that when you guys do study, will that be something you'll be able to tell us truly what is feasible right now versus what we're going to stretch, or is that something we won't even talk about, as knowing that we can add this many industries that take this many gallons, this many people, because right now we're talking about housing, we're talking about all these things that's going to require more water. And I want to make sure that, yes, we're having these droughts. We're starting to see a variation in our weather. And I feel like the drought issue is going to continue to show up every so often. And I don't want to get close to, definitely not to 88, 89's problem with drought. And also would like to reduce the amount of times we have to tell people they have to, I want to conserve water, yes, but I don't want to have to always every couple of months come to them and tell them that it's time to stop using
Correct. So obviously, as we look at that safe yield, that's going to tell us, hey, this is how much percentage that we have that we need to kind of not back up to and stuff like that. So as we do that safe yield study, that's going to tell us exactly where we are. Because I'll be very honest with you, we can't, since it's been since 2009, we can't tell you if that's number is positive or negative and stuff. So that's very, very important for us to look at that.
Okay. Wait, real quick, last thing. What is the time frame line to do this new study?
So obviously we need to put a proposal together
Right.
that we'll be bringing to council. So obviously I'm going to say probably within the next few months, we'll try to get that in front of council.
But then how long will the study take itself?
I have not actually done a safe yield study. Bob, do you know how long that study would actually take? It's going to take some time because they have to look at so many different metrics and stuff.
We would talk with the water survey and the USGS about them doing the technical lead on that. I would imagine it's at least a year to get the data together and collect that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to talk about the system loss. So this is something we started talking about maybe 3 or 4 years ago and was part of our $400 million in improvements that we're working on. One of those is a lot of the water main replacement as well as the meters. I believe at the time that we were talking about that proposal, we had an objective set in mind. I'm not exactly sure what that was, but we'll go back and find that. As Brett said, the IEPA, they have talked to us that we need to get that down. I like you said, there is a kind of a 20%, and there's maybe a standard in the industry that maybe Bob or Kevin could talk about. But certainly that is something that we are focused on and a major part of these initiatives that we have been implementing and working on. And we'll go back and we'll find out what specifically that number that we predicted to be was.
Never mind.
Yeah, I mean, and in the spirit of, the Shingo guiding principles seek perfection. I mean, if best in class is 10, set the target at 10 and work toward that and engage and empower people. I mean, that doesn't require a study for a year. I'm sure, there would be a lot of opportunity to bring the brain power that you have in your organization together and figure that out, because it's usually not attributed to any one thing. It's a lot of distributed thing, and you just take one variable at a time and make progress. So back to the comment previously by Councilmember Scott, if the average consumption is 10 million and we were losing 31% of that, our effective use on average then would be 7.5 million. Is that fair? If I'm understanding that stat correct?
Non-revenue water kind of just covers all the water that we're not metering. So it wouldn't
Right.
necessarily change use, because some people will still use the same amount of water even if they weren't paying for it. Does that make sense? So
And that's exactly my point. So the fact that we are losing, if you will, the opportunity for 30% non-metered, non-collected water use. I'm just trying to think about this too from a resident perspective. We're paying for 7.5-ish, but the routine use that you're seeing from whatever source, whether it's something nefarious or it's something just because of aging infrastructure or whatever it is, that's what the difference is. Am I getting that correct?
yeah, you're right. But yeah, there could be, I mean, non-revenue water would cover fire system testing that we aren't currently monitoring. And that's something, again, it's on the list of
Yeah.
how do we track that better to make sure that there isn't water going through our system that we don't know about.
Right.
The leaks that are happening, old meters, old services, nefarious activity as well. So yeah, there's a ton of variables that we're trying to look at every one of them. But some of them, if it's aging meters or broken meters, that isn't water that we will potentially see, being used less of.
Sure.
Because that's still, they're just not paying the full price for it.
That makes sense, Scott. So thank you very much. So what do you attribute the 6-point improvement in the slippage rate or leakage rate over just the last few months since you guys have been focusing on it?
So obviously changing out meters obviously is a huge one, and we've been very progressive of changing out meters so far to this. About every month we're changing about 300 meters and stuff. So obviously we're very proactively being out there changing those. A lot of our newer water main projects that we're doing going to be contributing to the lead service line replacement stuff. So I think we're just starting to see better usage. Obviously, we did ask the citizens to reduce water usage, and I'm sure that probably kind of played into that just a little bit as well.
I would just say again, part of the 400 million, 100 million of that was, I believe, for water main replacement. And keep in mind, we have water mains that are over 100 years old. They're going to leak.
Correct.
And so we have been behind as a community in going in and replacing this infrastructure. So that has been a focus of this council and of this staff to go in and replace that infrastructure. That is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'll defer to Farnsworth, but I think that is going to play a major role in getting that leakage down.
We have examples of smaller communities that because of the smaller community, you can see the impact of repairing a significant leak. And you can see it dramatically. When you deal with a much larger community, you won't see that big jump, but it does emphasize how you're never done. And so reinvesting every year is the only way to get it down. And if you were to get down to 15%, that is like really, really good. It's hard with a community because you also have backwash from your filters and there's other uses. But to constantly get it down again, you can then maximize what you have and defer capital improvements and look at, alternative water supplies. And there's many communities that have, going back to your question, Peoria has 4 different sources of water, 3 different aquifer areas in the Illinois River. So we can go through others, multiple, even Decatur, they have wells that they go in an emergency that they put into Friends Creek. And so there's multiple things to give you resilience. That's really the ultimate goal.
Thank you.
Thank
Member
you.
Ward.
Yeah, I would love to see some kind of a heat map of the leaks and the improvements. We have heat maps for all sorts of other things, crimes and so on. I'd love to see where that comes from because, we talk about aging infrastructure and maybe I'm making an assumption here, but I would guess older parts of the community have more leaks and maybe need, as we make decisions about how to focus our resources, that needs to be done based on data, not just my assumption. And the other thing that I'd really be interested in hearing about is what opportunities there are and what benefits there might be if there are such opportunities of cooperating with other communities. It kind of caught my attention as you were talking about how various other communities are looking at the same sources of water. And it leaves me kind of wondering, is there some way to engineer any of this to where we're not all functioning in silos, but where we could actually cooperate for the benefit of our communities?
That's an excellent point. And for a history lesson, not only did the Muhammad studies were done in '93, and then the modeling was in '98, but also the commission of the town, city, and county, they sponsored a regionalization, a regional water supply potential. So we studied 18 different communities and just studied what their needs are, and to look at that that fact. And so, at that time, there wasn't anything jumping out, but you have to remind yourself you have a regional supply now with Hudson, Towanda, Bloomington Township Public Water District. So you're already doing that. But that is a key point that you see more and more. And there is a map that I think I'll get for you to distribute for Illinois that shows, I think you'll find it very interesting, of how many regional supplies there are just in Illinois. And it'll show a map. And so I'll provide that to Scott and Brett. Maybe you can forward that on. It's from the water survey of just showing the sources and who's connected. And when you study it, you'll realize, and if you look at the Collar counties, Lake Michigan is taking care of the Collar counties. Otherwise, there'd be dramatic problems. So I think that's a great point to keep in mind. And it happens all the time, and it should be in the forefront of future planning.
Thank you.
I was just going to add on to that if I could. That whole concept of and philosophy of regionalization, like you mentioned, is a very hot topic in the water industry. And two very current examples going on up in the Chicagoland area that Bob kind of alluded to. One is City of Joliet is going to Lake Michigan and Chicago to bring that water out to the southwest suburbs. It started with Joliet, but they've now combined and they're regionalizing that, and they formed a Grand Prairie Water Commission. And so they're bringing water to Joliet and then I think 5 other communities in that southwest corner of the suburbs. And then there's another one that we just heard about recently, that DuPage Water Commission is bringing water out further to the western suburbs to Oswego and
Montgomery.
thank you, Montgomery, and there was another one in there.
And Kevin,
Yorkville.
what's the estimated cost of Juliet's project?
Juliet's project is in the billions with a
Yes,
B. It's, I think.
Billions with a B.
The last I heard was 1.5, 1.6 billion. This DuPage Water Commission one is around 400 million. So they're large projects. And to do a large project like that, a lot of times regionalization just makes sense. It kind of goes hand in glove. So, yeah, great comment.
Thank you. Not seeing any other lights on from council members. We appreciate all of you gentlemen and the detailed report. I know it's a priority for all of this council to learn from the past when we talk about water, understand the present, and look towards the future of our water needs and sources. So we look forward to that challenge ahead of all of us. With that, thank you again. And I believe that our city manager, Mr. Jurgens, has a report to share.
Thank you very much. Since we've gone a little long tonight, I'll try and be brief. Just wanted to highlight a couple of things. First, the first major event at our new North Main Plaza was held on Friday night, where several of the businesses came together and they had a great crowd, and we've heard great feedback from it. And today got a call about when can we do the next one, and the response was, we want you to do as many of these as you can. That's the whole purpose of the streetscape project. So we're excited to see the businesses really start to get some advantage out of this. Next slide. Wanted to share tonight the plan that we have, the tentative plan for the data center moratorium. We are planning right now for speaking with the Planning Commission to have a meeting in late August. We don't have a specific date yet, but that'll be an opportunity where we will bring in different experts, and we'll have a system where people can submit questions, council members could submit questions, and then we will try and get answers from the experts. Likely we'll have that over at the BCPA again, probably in late August. Then on October 1st, we will have the Planning Commission will have its first public hearing on the proposed new regulations that are drafted, and then a second public hearing on November 5th at the Planning Commission meeting, potentially then action by the council at the last meeting in November. Or if the council needs more time or wants to study it further, then you could extend the moratorium for a while you put those updated regulations into place and look at those. Right now, staff is reviewing the different regulations throughout the state and starting to work on a draft of that. Next slide. Again, talked about this a little bit last week, but we do have that parking lot open where the front and center building was. The signs were installed last week. This is 43 permitted parking spaces and 45 free 4-hour parking spaces. So this is going to help us greatly with the downtown parking situation, and we're excited to get this up and going. Next slide. Juneteenth is this Friday. The city offices will be closed, and the city celebration will be on Saturday from noon to 6. A lot of different events planned. This is always a great community event, and we encourage the community to come out to Miller Park for this. Next slide. We had the groundbreaking for Sunnyside Park just a little bit ago at 4:30. Several members of the council were there, but really excited about this 12-acre park that's really being funded by Benward and through different grants. But again, this is going to be a regional destination for recreation, education, and environmental sustainability. And I really just want to thank Tim Irvin from Benward, who has led the effort on this and who has been a great partner to the city. And then finally, next slide, just a reminder that the drone show will take place on July 2nd. We have 2 bands, 8 food trucks, Kids Zone sponsored by the Bison and Iron Coyote, and the drone show planned at 9 o'clock. And these are some pictures from the company that we have hired to do the drone show. I think Firefly is their name. So we are really excited about this show. We're working hand in hand with the town of Normal and really appreciate all of the sponsors that have stepped up to help us with this, including the three major ones, McLean County, State Farm, and O'Brien Automotive. So again, just get ready for this and more information to come. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other action to come or items to come before council, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Motion by member Hendricks,
Second.
seconded by member Dannenberger. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Nope. Thank you. Thank you. That is my phone. Okay, no problem.